current events, injustice, police brutality, systematic racism, politics. What say ye? Enough said. Welcome back to an all-new episode of Enough Said with your hosts, Jemo, Caroline, and Cherry Poet.
Hello.
Enjoyed the last few shows. We're really getting comfortable here. We're enjoying ourselves. I hope you are too. We hope you are too. So, Jemo, what say ye?
I say, just as a disclaimer, that anything that we say on here is not gospel. It's not the law. It's just our opinion. And so please don't take it as such. Please don't quote us. Please don't repeat what we say as gospel. But we want you to join in the conversation. We will be talking about factual stuff, and we'll be talking about stuff that's not as factual. We will be commenting on different things. Today, we want to talk about COVID-19. Hopefully, that you can participate later in that by sending in some comments. But that's what we're doing. It's a disclaimer.
So do tune in. Caroline, what say ye really quick?
Well, I'm just glad to be here with all three of you and to continue these interesting discussions.
Yes.
We're in the same clothes because we're taping on the same day, guys. Just in case.
So this is part 2. We're gonna, as Jemo said, we're gonna get into some COVID stuff. So with that, I'm gonna just pull up this screen, and this has to do with you, Caroline, because you're in Jacksonville. So we got some news I wanted to share. Give me 1 second. I'll pull that up. Let's see.
Let me just say COVID-19 is still rampant out there. We still have to wear our mask or gloves and sanitize and wash our hands.
And social distancing?
Absolutely. Still in place.
Okay, so here it is.
Wow.
According to the New York Post, and I just saw this today, posted on Facebook. According to the New York Post, it's the second wave of coronavirus hits Florida, Texas, and Arizona after reopenings. So what does that mean for the rest of the states that haven't opened yet? And what does that mean for Florida? Because people want to be on the beach, they want to be out. What's going on?
Didn't they see this coming? Didn't they see this coming? Go ahead, Caroline.
It's interesting that we closed the states because it's an invisible virus, and then we learned several things about it. We learned that it is easily transmittable, and just so many things we have learned. We did not necessarily, we did a lot of testings in Florida, but here's the thing: before opening up, we did not make it mandatory to test people going out. So once they opened up, the beaches were flooded with people again, and it was expected that COVID.
It wasn't just flooded with people from Florida. The minute someone up these parts hear that Florida is opening, they're going to shoot down there to get on the beach because people want to be out.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And the thing that is very interesting is if the reason why the safer at home mandate came in place because we're trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19, why would you think that without any testing, without any antibody in your system, that you will be safe to go out there before anything is done to the mass population? So of course it's expected to rise, and it has risen. And just so you know, guys, they're expecting over 140,000 deaths by July, nationwide, that is, by July 4th.
Wow.
They're expecting 140,000 deaths. And we know when they tell us the numbers, we know a lot of the time the numbers it's an estimate. It's usually under reported. And so, you know, so by July 4th, so definitely by November, by the election, you're looking at close to 200,000 deaths in
So
the
what
US.
happened to them saying that the coronavirus would be less in the summertime because in warm climate, it's not as prevalent? What happened
Yeah.
to that?
You
You
have
know
to
what?
remember, this is a virus that, that's why they call it a novel virus. Most of what people say is a guess. It's an educated guess. It's not a virus that they can see. It's not something they're familiar with. Everything they're coming out with are guesses.
Right.
And
Well, you know,
therefore,
that's because, I mean, it's been said, you know, by Nobel Prize winners that, you know, this isn't just a virus. This is something that was made in a lab. And this was said by a Nobel Prize winner.
Peace
You know what
prize.
I mean? He said, if
right.
you
And it's
take back my Nobel Prize because you feel some kind of way because I'm telling the truth, then by all means take it back. But, you know, this isn't normal because the way he explained it, and I wish I had his name right now. The way he explained it was like viruses, such as what, you know, COVID, what they're trying to say COVID is, would normally die in, wouldn't affect the world the way it did. So you know what I mean? So because he's saying the hot countries, you know, Jamaica, Africa, and all the countries that are hot
Australia.
would never have any cases of it if it were a true virus. He says this goes to show you that it was a created virus. And he said when he, the minute he heard about it, he called China and to talk to the people in the lab, and every last one of them were dead. It's a something they were making up in the lab gone wrong, and that
Right.
is why it affects the entire world.
Let me just
So
say that hot countries do get viruses, but they don't last as long, like Australia, Jamaica, Africa, as you say, and all the other hot countries. There are several of them. But let me just say that that's one of the reasons why I believe this virus is airborne, because they created it. It may have been created in a lab. I agree with that. Man-made, probably. And it's spreading like wildfire. Not everybody has been touching everybody and touching everywhere like that. I think it's by touch as well. But if some of it is airborne by droplets that you sneeze or talk, the spitlets coming out of your mouth and stuff like that has caused this virus to spread. Now, if it's airborne, why would I?
let's go back to just before we heard about the virus in the beginning, right? Let's go back to the news that was coming out that was saying, listen, the earth is too populated. We need to get rid of, don't quote me on the percentage, but you know, it was like 15 or so % of the world population we need
Oops,
to
black
get
people
rid
have
of.
to be
And then all of
50%.
us, and you know, of course it meant, you know, we need to get rid of the black folk. And then all of a sudden, COVID comes in, and all of a sudden, you know, more black folks are dying from COVID than anyone else.
And guess what, Cherry? I think that's more than a
come on now, you know, is this all a conspiracy?
but you have to remember this.
I think it's more than a conspiracy theory. And if black
Yeah.
folks want to go out there on the beach, when they open up, to me, that they're insensitive to the people, the most majority of people who are dying lives. Once again, Black
Okay.
lives don't matter to these people who are opening up their states too early. Go ahead.
Well,
Okay.
well, if you're gonna say that, then what say ye about all the marching?
Okay, let's put
The people that are out there protest, are they insensitive as well?
Okay, so let's put things in perspective, because a virus, you know, is a living entity. So, or it doesn't stay alive unless it has a host. but it is one of the, microscopic thing,
Organisms, yeah.
organism. For it to have life, you have to remember that this thing came from somewhere. So what I think, more than just saying it's man-made, I think is a regular virus that mutated, because these
From a
scientists
bat?
go in, mutated. These scientists go in and they check on they do all these experiments with viruses, and they put different liquids and different things on them, to see how it functions, how it operates. So I do believe that it's a mutated virus. So that's why they say it's man-made. It mutates itself.
But where did it come from?
Okay,
From a bat?
so they're saying that it comes from bats, and that this is another strain of coronavirus. So coronavirus had always been out there.
Yeah.
So whatever they were doing in that lab, whether they combine viruses to see how they operate, or whatever, it is in a sense, like they say, man-made, but not like a inanimate object man-made. It's a virus.
What if the intent was to create a weapon of mass destruction?
That could have been the intent too. The other thing is, it's mostly transmitted via droplets. Where do we get droplets? From the mouth, mostly from talking, sneezing, coughing. So, and then when it goes out in the air, Jem, that's when it becomes airborne, because they show that it can live in the air for up to 3 hours. So you're correct in that it is airborne. It's something anybody can just sneeze, can breathe in, or just inhale in, and before you know it. Now, it's also, you can even transmit it via your mucus in your eyelid. Some people have contracted it through the eyes, so you have to wear glasses as well.
Right.
Wow. Right. Maybe even from teardrops, because that's still something coming out of your body. So who knows? So don't let them be crying on you, Ollie. Because teardrops.
So all of this, it's something that is bigger than them. Whatever they were doing, it would be like if you added, say you added, 3 different insects to a pot, and you're studying how these insects, operate, and then they kind of mutate and became one.
That's they say it came from bats, and bats have been played with, eaten, whatever they do in China for years. So why all of a sudden this just came from a bat? I am a little leery. I'm not a scientist.
But I think that was discounted. I don't think, think that turned out to be true.
Well, no, we don't know. They still say, some people say it originated from a bat. Some people say it originated from in the lab.
But even if it originated from a bat, if they extract these viruses from the bat, put them in a lab, and do a lot of research with them, adding different substances to them, trying to figure out, a lot, what scientists do. They try to figure out how does this thing infect people? How long is the infect? So they're doing studies.
Right.
And in their studies,
but I don't think it's that innocent though. I don't think it's as innocent as we're doing studies. I think it was a deliberate act to create a weapon of mass destruction. Got out of hand, and all of them died. who initially created
disproportionately? How were they so good enough to make it so that it affects Black people disproportionately?
But here's what you have to, again, you have to say in the USA. It's only in the USA that it affects Black people disproportionately.
I hear in UK as well. I hear in the United Kingdom as well.
In the UK as well? Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I want to talk about the vaccine. But before we get to that, Cherry mentioned, what do we think about, since we were just talking about George Floyd and the protesters, what do we think about them and the spreading of the virus?
If it's not okay for people to go on the beach, then it shouldn't be okay for people to congregate, for the sake of protesting, So,
yeah. The virus can spread, obviously, they're saying, because we don't social distance. So when they protested about opening up, any large crowd, the virus can spread. So I do agree that we should look for a spike, because not only because of the protesting for Black Lives Matter, but also the protesting for the governments to open up the state. So that's the first.
When they protest for the government to open up the states, people weren't all up in arms, and they weren't wearing masks. At least most of the Black Lives Matter protesters that I saw were wearing masks. So at least even if they were in social distancing, in some cases they were, but in some cases they weren't. Even though they weren't, at least they had one measure of protection. Those who are protesting to open up the states early had no masks. What they had was guns.
Right. And the thing that I don't want to stray from is they will go ahead and blame the protesters for Black Lives Matter. But the spike started after they opened up the state, along with when they protested to open up the state. The spike started before this Black Lives Matter marching up.
Because now, they can't count the Black Lives Matter protesters yet, because it take
correct.
days.
Correct. So this is why they're saying by August, they're going to expect, I think the last time I checked, which was about 2 days ago, we had 112,000 deaths. So now they're projecting, based on the protest and everything that come into play, that would possibly be up to 140,000 by August. Wow. And about two. And then now President Trump, who is the president of the United States, who is supposed to push to keep the people safe, is going to have what he called the National Republican Convention, where he wants thousands of people to gather in buildings. So that again is going to push up the possibility of
COVID-19. It's not just a convention. He's having rallies all over the place. He wanted to have one in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and rallies bring people together, a bunch of people. So you can't just blame Black Lives Matter when you have the people protesting to open up the states. A lot of them look like white supremacists to me.
Correct.
But not generalized. Maybe there were some others there. There were others there that are not. Yeah. So while we get Sherry back on the screen, let me just say that any kind of gathering, and if you're the president and you're allowing a gathering.
Yeah, and it's very important to see that this is a common strategy where they try to always blame something on the Blacks. So here it is, we had the other marchers to open up the state and all of that, yet we're gonna have the presidential convention, but they will blame Black Lives Matter for the spike in the protest.
And what they should have is,
I'm sorry, in COVID-19. And this is typically what they do, including, let me just go quickly to the police brutality. It is police brutality and the killing of Black men that sparked the protest. And it's during the protest that some cops got shot and a couple got killed.
Are you going back to police brutality?
No, I'm just showing you the strategy of always blaming the protesters. They blame the person who is protesting Black Lives Matter for the death, as opposed to blaming the police who started the brutality for the death of the police at the function. Do you understand?
The Black officer that was killed.
The Black officer. So they're going to blame the Black Lives Matter movement for the spike in COVID, when the spike in COVID started from they opened up the state and from those marchers marched for opening up the state. That's where it started.
Absolutely right. Another thing I want to talk about with COVID-19 is the PPE and having enough ventilators and equipment. Now, I believe, I have nothing to prove this, but I believe that one of the reasons why minorities are dying in droves is because they're not giving ventilators to minorities and to Blacks. Blacks and Hispanics are dying at an alarming rate. They are not providing us with proper health care. They are
Well,
not.
again, you go back to President Trump. President Trump sent so many PPEs to Florida, the Republican state. We had more than enough. We had a surplus of PPEs down here.
While New York needed them.
While New York needed them, or while people in other underprivileged areas needed them. So, of course, if you're in a hospital and say 3 patients are dying up in New York, 1 white and 2 blacks, they're going to take the PPE and help that. They're going to try to save that white life, because we have to remember again, we're in a nation where prejudice, meaning that the thought that the white life is more important than the black life. So they're going to always save the white man over the black man.
Well, what I know for a fact is that I know many black men who had symptoms that they would not accept in the hospital, and women too, by the way. I know personally that they said, oh, you can manage your symptoms at home. It doesn't sound severe enough. They never asked for testing. They never tell them. They went to the hospital. They sent them back home.
And those people, some of them went home and died. Yes. Some of them went home, and then by the time they got so serious and got back to the hospital, they died.
Yes.
They died.
So there was prejudice too in this whole process.
But this
prejudice.
is not.
Let's Poet says something now. She's back in about the COVID-19 and the PPE equipment. Do you think they're distributing them fairly?
Of course not. Of course not. But a lot of things have changed in the past, couple weeks, and maybe things will be different later.
This is the reason why I feel like we can never take the focus off racism, because at the root of every issue that you're talking about, racism. The reason why more blacks are dying than whites, racism. The reason why more whites get better health care, racism.
COVID-19, however, as you know, started in China. It devastated Italy and Spain and some other countries, some countries that are non-black countries.
Correct.
When it got to the United States, and now I understand in UK, because I've spoken to some friends over there, it's ravishing the poor community and, of course, the minority communities mostly. So,
okay, so what do you guys say? What do you guys say about the fact that Madagascar, a small poor country, came up with a cure, and if you post it on Facebook, they don't let people see it?
Really? I never even heard that.
About that. Yeah, Madagascar came up with a natural cure, and they actually sent a plane load of it to another African country, and it was shut down.
Really? Because I personally believe that no vaccine can cure this. I mean, let me rephrase that. I personally believe that they're not going to come up with a vaccine anytime soon. And even if they do, that can cure or stop this. And even if they do, it's like the flu, they're going to have to give you every year for it to really go away and eradicate. So wait a minute, let me finish. Let me finish. So therefore, I would be more in tune to believe a natural cure like Madagascar, which is an island off the coast of Africa, than I would believe their vaccines. Having said that, thank you all for tuning in, and enough said.
Enough said.
Bye.
Bye.
Current events, injustice, police brutality, systematic racism, politics. What say ye? Enough said.